So we'll try this for the panel, but let's start with you, Jeff. When people come up to you and say they like the show, what scene do they talk to you about that they remember you from?
That they remember me from? No.
What do they most often say?
There isn't. They just, actually at this point now, they just come up and say they like the show and they leave me alone. I mean, they're very nice. I mean, people who watch Curb Your Enthusiasm are not typical TV watchers, you know what I mean? Or they're not stupid people, they're smart people. So they come up, they compliment you, they move on their way.
That's always one, though.
You know, the person to ask this of is her.
Susie.
Because for me, she gets a very specific request. I get the quick, you know.
Yeah, well, my life has become extremely bizarre, that people just come up to me in the street, wherever I am, airports in St. Louis, begging me to tell them to go fuck themselves. It's like, I'm buying produce, I'm shaking a melon, you know, call me a fat fuck. It's like...
What about you,
Not always
Cheryl?
in the mood, you know?
Are there any scenes people talk to you about?
Yeah, it's interesting because especially I was in Canada shooting something, and they're a little behind in their seasons, and one guy on the sidewalk came up and said, "Hey Cheryl, how's your vagina?" And I knew that it had to be from Curb, and I'm scrolling through my mind like, how's my vagina? And then I
Wandering
remember,
bear.
By the way,
Bear.
that's my favorite episode. But that is a weird thing. When they come up and say a line to you,
Yes,
you have
they'll say
no
a line.
idea what they're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I would think "how's your vagina" would be one you'd recognize.
Or then you know what else
it
they
took
do?
a second.
They come up to you and they say, they start retelling the episode to you.
Yeah.
And then you said, I know, I said it. And then Larry said, I know, I was there. And they just start retelling.
They're all very lovely people.
For the most part. With the risk of sounding grandiose, and I really have no intention of that. The worst, if I'm flying, let's say I'm doing a talk show in New York, and it's LA, New York, it's 5 hours. It's not quoting great, they do that. But if you're sitting next to someone for 5 hours, guys would whip out a legal pad and go, "Mr. Lewis, call me Richard." He says, "Listen, I have 40 to 60 ideas that you got to get to Larry." And then I just blatantly lie, and I've tried to be, I don't like lying, but I say my uncle lost his knee in a blender, whatever I say to get anything. I say I'm mourning, and 8 people died, and I have a rash here that's, I got to get an MRI. And they don't care. A rash is good, but they really expect me to call Larry and tell them specifically what, I said, Larry writes his own shit, man. He doesn't need any ideas. But they go, that's funny too. And then you can add this on to, you know, so that's been the biggest burden for me. People wanting to help Larry like he needs help. You know?
Well, a couple of things. First off, people ask me if any of my ideas have ever, you know, in terms of ideas for stories. Have I ever called you and go, here's an episode you should do? Ever? Not one.
No,
me.
not once.
I've never said
Cheryl
anything.
has, though. Cheryl's had.
I have.
Yeah, Cheryl has.
Has it been in the show?
Cheryl's had some
Yes,
ideas on the
yes.
show.
Right.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but I've never done that. I can tell you unequivocally of the thousands of people, and it is thousands, who've come up to me with Curb ideas, I've never heard one funny one. Not one, ever. Ever. And now I say to people, last night I was in Atlanta, I was being interviewed by this guy, and he goes, I have an idea, you know, that I want to share with you. It's for an audience. And I said, I just want to tell you, no one has ever told me a funny one. If you do right now, you'll be the first. What I'm asking you to do is, please don't tell me. I don't want to reject you in front of these people. I don't want to do that to you. He goes, no, I think you'll like it. He told me it wasn't funny. That's just not funny. I'm sorry.
You know what people come up to me all the time and they say, I'm exactly like Larry David. I am Larry David. And I always want to say to them, I don't, but I always want to say, no, you're an annoying, neurotic accountant from Great Neck. Larry is a genius. You know, like they don't get that there's like a different thing. They think that because they are like how he acts on the show, that they're him, but they're two completely different people.
Or they come up to me and say, my wife's just like Susie, and I go,
Oh.